It's JCPenney's Labor Day home sale, and the deals are hot. Get up to 50% off select furniture, mattresses, and window, and refresh every room in the house. Plus, shop doorbusters Friday to Monday while they last, like $6.99 select Fieldcrest bath towels and a Black & Decker food processor or a George Foreman grill, only $39.99 each. Or save an extra 25% with coupon across the store. Hurry and bring it all home for less. JCPenney. Doorbusters valid 9/3 to 9/6 and excluded from coupon. Offers and coupon valid through 9/6. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
Welcome to the Vibe Within podcast. I'm your host, Gab Cohen. Each week, we will connect through stories and conversations about wellness, yoga, addictions, spirituality, mental health, rituals, and everything in between. The goal is to transform our traumas into strengths to create the change we desire in our lives. My mission is to help others by shining awareness on real-life topics so we can learn new ways to heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whatever you are going through in this moment, you are not alone, so let's connect and heal our vibe within.
This city once sparked a divinity within me. Alright. This city once sparked a divinity.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. How are we doing? How are we doing? Like, truly. I'm still on an Instagram break, which feels great. This is week 2 of me being off Instagram. And I feel like my soul is reconnecting. And again, I talked all about this in the most previous episode. Soul scrubbing, detoxing from sharing, all of that. So if you want to be up to date with the wild transitions that the collective is going through, like the energetics, I talk about some tarot cards that can be kind of threaded in to the energies that we're feeling right now. Talk about my process moving back to the East Coast and how fucking tiring and exhausting mind, body, and soul that was. So go check out that episode. But I'm super excited about today's episode with Erin Garrity. She is a yoga therapist who actually is located in Florida, close to where I am now. And we did record this episode a few months back, so it's not a super old recording, but it's not like super new as of last week. So my computer is really fucked up, you guys. I'm actually in the process of really trying to save up for a new computer because I've had this laptop for I want to say 10 or 11 years, and at this point I'm afraid that it's just gonna like die and croak on me and I really don't want that to happen. I do everything on this computer, the podcast, and I am shifting my focus from Instagram to YouTube. So basically the reason why I'm explaining this to you is because I thought that I lost this episode with Erin. My computer just likes to erase files randomly, which is so fucked up. So I spent like a month trying to like detox my computer and go through files and organize and upgrade, and the computer is just so old. Like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I used this all throughout art school, and I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. Like, there's no getting this computer back to the way that it was. It still works, thankfully, but I do need to start really asking myself, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? Where is the money coming from? You know, I don't really get paid that much to do this podcast. Ads really aren't that great of paying resources, unfortunately, because it really does rely on how many views and downloads you get or listens or whatever. So for me, the podcast isn't really about the money, but I've been trying to really focus and ask myself, you know, okay, where should my energy be going then? Because with COVID, everything's changed. I'm sure your career's changed. I'm sure your financial uh, patterns and pathways have had to change because a lot of the industries are just diminishing now that COVID has been such a prominent issue with how people are surviving financially. But basically, with this Instagram cleanse, I've realized that Instagram is like a black hole, to be honest. And it truly feels like I put so much energy into Instagram with the Instagram lives and tarot readings and stuff like that that I love doing on Instagram Live because then I put it on my IGTV. But it just feels like it's a black hole and they just disappear. And then that hour that I spent doing that is just nowhere to be found, and it's not reaching anybody. So that's why I'm kind of shifting my focus and my intention now during this break to create, well, I already have a YouTube channel where I post these podcast episodes. I also post other things, and I'm going to be starting to really delve into sharing maybe weekly and monthly or bi-weekly collective tarot readings that are not science specific, and they'll be timeless, and sometimes they will have to do with time, you know, with different transits that are happening in astrology, but this is my way of trying to figure out how I can actually reach people and you know, be the messenger of these messages that I'm receiving through the tool of tarot. And the reason why tarot is helping me so much is because it's helping me integrate my shadow work, which sometimes can feel like we can be in the deep end of shadow work, and that can be daunting. And tarot has helped me find the way of integrating my shadow work, what I'm learning in therapy. I'm also in self-study mode with Jungian psychology. I've got, like, you know, notebooks full of notes, and, you know, just I've been listening to like hundreds of hours of lectures and podcasts about Jungian psychology and shadow work. And what I want my YouTube channel to provide is a pathway of combining tarot as a healing tool to bring up messages that truly matter right now, not the type of readings that you see, oh, like, when are you going to meet your twin flame, or, you know, your love tarot reading, or what are they thinking, or what are they saying. Like, that's not my style at all. I feel like I'm ready to up level and create something a little bit more in depth mentally. And basically, you know, I miss teaching yoga, and with COVID, I can't teach yoga in studios right now, nor do I really want to, because studios are very tight knit. They're not, you know, letting new teachers in, and I don't really, I feel like it's not that I'm over teaching yoga, but I am trying to find ways to help the collective in different ways. But I do miss teaching yoga, and I don't know if you're a listener who is also a yoga student of mine, but if you've taken any of my yoga classes, like at Exhale in Miami, or Equinox, or City Fitness in Philly, over the years, I used to teach a lot of yin yoga and restorative yoga, which quickly turned into these, like, healing experience sessions. And it was way more than just a yoga class. It was music, it was dialogue, it was me speaking about mental health and emotional well-being and shadow work. So a lot of my classes and yoga teaching style is very deeply rooted in shadow work and mental health. So I'm, you know, being off Instagram has given me the space and time to realize that that's what I really miss. And that's what I integrate into tarot readings, is shadow work. And these toxic beliefs and self-limiting beliefs and family dynamics that we're trying to make sense of, and the transitions that we're going through, and how we can feel so stuck in these old patterns and old cycles and these toxic ways of viewing ourselves, and how we project onto others, and how we allow others to project on us, and how we're so stuck in past experiences that have shaped us into forming these self-limiting beliefs. So it's our past experiences that maybe traumatized us in small and big ways that have left us here with these toxic lenses of ourselves. And I really want to use tarot as a integration tool and a physical, tangible tool to extract these messages from spirit guides, from just the subconscious energy of the collective, because I feel like my clairvoyant tendencies and gifts have have definitely gotten a lot more prominent at this time. And I am ready to be more vulnerable. And I'm, as much as I love Instagram, it's a black fucking hole. It really, really is. And I feel like if I can create a more in-depth channel for the podcast and then the YouTube, that'll kind of bring it all together better. So if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would really help, because the goal is for me to get 1,000 subscribers. And the reason for that is because when you get 1,000 subscribers, you can start to monetize your YouTube, which means you can start to make money off of it. And I have to be real. I have to just be 100% real with you guys. It's really hard making money these days. And I had to sit down and really ask myself, where am I putting my energy, and what do I enjoy doing, and what do I really want to do for people that can benefit them on their healing journey? And I feel like I can reach more people on YouTube. So it's going to start, slow and steady, because slow and steady wins the race. But it would really benefit just everything that I'm pouring myself into if I could slowly start to get more followers on there. And, I have a lot of followers on Instagram, and I'm going to start, promoting my YouTube on there. And I have about 33,000 followers on Instagram. It's, and I was just talking about this with my friend Christy, like, if people support me on Instagram, then I'm sure 1,000 people of my 33,000 followers can follow me on YouTube. And if it doesn't happen, then that just shows you that people really aren't supporting you. People really aren't, they don't care what you're doing. And that's kind of a shitty, place to be, but it's a real place to be, because if you have so many followers and then you ask your followers, hey, come support me on this platform, which they, like, so many people use YouTube. So it'll be a nice little litmus test, to be quite honest. So if you guys use YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will link it in the show notes, because I'm going to start doing some really in-depth tarot readings that are going to be very psychology, mental health based. And these readings are meant to help us actually find ways to release these toxic ways of living and being, and addiction and eating disorders, and just like trauma and shadow work and all these things that are keeping us back, and they're keeping us stuck, and they're keeping us hidden behind these walls that we keep finding ourselves against. So, I really feel like I'm ready to connect with more people. And, we have to be smart with where we're putting our energy. If we're struggling financially, we have to really think about where we're putting our energy, how we can make money, how we can use our knowledge and our skills and our passion to create a new way of living. You know, COVID's no joke. Like, everybody needs to start brainstorming and figuring out how we can monetize our passions and our truths. And it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to me on YouTube. Once I hit 1,000 followers, YouTube, you know, you have to set up ads with YouTube, and it doesn't cost the followers anything. So that's, you know, I feel like that's an amazing thing. Like, I'm not asking my followers for money, I'm just asking them to subscribe. So anyways, I'm excited for you to listen to this episode with Erin, because she is a recovery from addictive tendencies and bulimia and alcohol and pill abuse. She like pours her heart and soul into helping others find freedom through like deep subconscious repatterning. And she does body work, retreats, trainings, coaching sessions. She's amazing, and the way that she explains addiction and eating disorders and toxic ways of viewing ourselves and the subconscious, it's so shadow work based, very Jungian psychology based, and I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So you can find her on Instagram. I will put all of her info in the show notes, and we'll get right into the episode. Enjoy. You talk a lot about addiction and, you know, thriving after addiction and eating disorders, disordered eating, and how they correlate together. And that's, you know, what this podcast is really all about, is trying to find ways to navigate through all of that. And it can be really messy. So I'd love to hear kind of where you're at right now and where you feel, you know, grateful in your recovery process, and then we can always backtrack and go from there. But where are you at right now in this whole process?
Sure. So, yeah, I do believe in divinity and serendipity. So, um, it is kind of funny that we live right around the corner from each other. But so I think I'm in a kind of high level of recovery. A lot of people, like when they come to me, they've stopped using their substance of choice, and or say if they had an eating disorder, maybe they aren't like purging, but they're still binging, etc. So where I'm at right now is, I had bulimia for 12 years, and that was healed in steps, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. I used to manage my emotions using different substances that I would rotate, like pills, alcohol, people.
Mm-hmm.
And so currently I'm in a really good space where, every day's different for sure, especially with the 2020 has been like one hell of a ride. But I'm dedicated to my meditation practice every day. It grounds me. I'm dedicated to yoga in some form or another, whether it be the asana physical practice or studying of spiritual scriptures. Yoga Sutras is kind of like my go-to. My partner loves the Mahabharata and the Upanishads and Puranas. So we kind of like, we talk back and forth about stuff like that. But I guess I'm in a space where, I lead yoga retreats. We do yoga teacher trainings. And so even if I had the inkling of, I don't want to show up for myself today, which I think everyone has that from time to time, like it's really easy to be in recovery when you're feeling good,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and, but I've had up and down health issues, just, I've recently actually discovered I had a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, um, which was kind of shocking, but answered a lot of questions. But the fact that I know that now, and I'm healing myself on a physical level, like much deeper, in addition to the different practices that I have, meditation, yoga, I take different supplements to keep myself going. my life is dedicated to service,
Mm-hmm.
and service from a good place, not service from I'm over pouring from my cup, but rather I recognize the value of giving to myself, investing in myself, making sure that I've given myself everything that I need so that when I show up, I'm very present. I I don't have not battling myself the whole time when I'm with people. I can just see them and be with them, and it's such a spiritual experience, and I've been on the other side of the fence. I do believe in showing up from where you're at, and for sure I've been on this journey. I mean, probably about like 15 years total. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've definitely been on that side of the fence where I wanted to help people, and I helped them from where I could, but man, was it noisy in my head, you know and it's nice, and again, every day's different depending on stress level, circumstance, etc., how my body feels, but I really cherish the fact that I can be present with people, and I can really hear them, and see them, and love them. I love people so much, like, and that
Mm-hmm.
has to be reflective of me loving myself, which some days I'd be like, yeah, you know what, Erin, you're pretty cool, like you're doing a good job. I could just like outright say that. And other days, you know as far as like body image is concerned, I'm sure we'll dig into that. um, Other days, I don't know, like your body's retaining water, and your mind will play tricks on you if you're not careful and you stay in that space too long. So um,
Mm.
yeah, it's up and down. I don't want to project any image that the perfect yogini or anything, but I can say I'm doing the work. I'm proud of what I'm
Yeah.
doing, and I'm also able to look at other people and be proud of them. Like I was like so enamored with your podcast, and when you reached out to me, I was like, oh, let her be cool, let her be cool, and and, and you were, and I was like, oh, I dig her vibe. So that was a just it's awesome to be in that space, to be a strong leader and to lift up other leaders.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's really important what you said about, I'm not a perfect yogi, and I feel like people in the healing space can get wrapped up in that, well, I have to be fully recovered in order to like help people,
Mm,
which is, you know, uh not true. And recovery is going to look and feel different for everybody. And what you said in the beginning, about how you have clients who, maybe they don't purge anymore, but they binge, or they don't use anymore, but they, resort to some other eating disorder kind of technique. I find that super interesting, like that the eating disorder and addiction can have like phases, like
mm-hmm,
different phases of my life. I've realized, oh, like when I was in art school and this was the situation, the eating disorder and the addiction was here.
mm,
That's interesting. Or, when I was living with these people, it was like this. And when I was living with family, it was like this. And it's almost like, especially with eating disorders, maybe one is easier to recover from, maybe the purging. In my case, I also struggled with bulimia for a handful of years, and thankfully I've been able to move past that. But there's other forms of my eating disorder and disordered eating that has stuck with me, and it's really hard to get past and through that. So when you have a client in that kind of scenario, I feel like a lot of people listening might resonate, like, okay, well, I stopped doing this, but I can't seem to shake this really toxic way of being
mm,
off of me. What's your way of helping that person to navigate through?
mm. So healing happens in phases. It's a process. It takes time, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, especially people new in recovery, who they think there's like this imaginary switch that I'm going to say something, right? Or they're going to take a certain supplement, or they're going to
Mhm.
meditate one day, and then all of a sudden they're like Eckhart Tolle and they're enlightened. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, it doesn't really happen like that for most of us. And I'm in the most of us. So, what I like to say is that all addictions and eating disorders are the result of unaddressed pain from the inside. And, you know, I'm going to relate this to body work a little bit just to put in the physical realm. So I do this body work called tension pattern release. And people come to me with chronic pain. And, you know, I've been doing this work for about 12 years. They'll come to me with chronic pain and, you know, their shoulder's locked up or whatever, their hip. And I'll take a look at the whole thing. And a lot of times I'll be digging behind their knee or I'll be working on their neck because I have to release a certain area based on what their tension pattern is telling me, right? So, you know, a lot of people where they end up, that's not where they began as far as their addiction or their eating disorder. A lot of times it gets progressively worse. But there was some pain that we didn't know how to deal with in that moment. And so we developed some sort of coping mechanism, right? So for me, you know, going way, way back to when I was, I think like 12 or 13, you know, seeing my body, I just felt a lot of pressure, and I saw my mom taking diet pills. So I started there. That messed with my nervous system, right? I got really thin really quick, like way too quick. And then I got a lot of attention, right? The story goes on from there. So that piece had to be healed, but there was so much on top of it that I had to heal first before I got to that, right? So with body work, for example, and I promise I'll tie this all back together, but
No, I love hearing you talk about this. It's so nourishing. Yeah.
Thank you. So if somebody comes to me with like a locked up shoulder, rotator cuff tear, you know, I might have to look down in their hip or in their iliopsoas and release that like way down in their hip by their groin. And then all of a sudden their posture is more upright. And then I have to look, oh, so they've had a compensation pattern on the left side. I'm going to have to release their latissimus dorsi on that side. And then they go up. So it happens in pieces. And then the tension pattern starts to release and we start to open up gradually, like, you know, like the lotus flower unfolding its petals, right? It doesn't just happen all at once. It's like petal by petal by petal if you slow it down. So, you know, recovery is like that for people. And I think the first thing to heal is to acknowledge that it is a process. And now I think a lot of people don't want to be in that process or have patience because they don't like the way that they feel. And they want to get away from it as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah.
And I have a lot of compassion for that because a lot of times we don't know how to handle those emotions that are coming up, right? And we disconnect from ourselves. So I had a great pattern of disconnect growing up. I experienced some trauma when I was very, very young. And so then it was just such a big deal in my little body that I would escape to my head because how do I even deal with that, right? I'm so scared. And so people...
And unsafe.
Oh, and oh my God, yes. So with trauma, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. With trauma, if one does not feel safe, so if I do coaching with someone, 100% they have to feel safe and comforted, and they have to feel like they have compassion. And then it softens everything, and then we're able to go inward. So for those who are, you know, come to that point of recovery and they're struggling, that was mainly the people that I've dealt with, is people who they've let go of their substance of choice, they're in recovery, but then they're like, oh, you took away all my coping mechanisms, what am I going to do now, right? And I look at that with compassion because there's big feelings, emotions, trapped energy inside of us that is stagnant. We don't know how to reach it. And so then we reach for things at a certain point because you can't take it, right? It's not sustainable to be in pain all the time. It's not sustainable to be, you know, feel shame all the time. And so because we don't know, or maybe we don't have the tools to reach those things within us, we reach for outside things, external things to numb the pain a little bit. Of course we do, because we want to move forward in our life. We want to try to be happy, you know, so much compassion for people that are on this journey. But as far as people who going through, you know, recovering from an eating disorder, as far as the phases, it happens. It's a process. And the more that you can have, like, start that journey of self-love and meditation and knowing yourself, being with yourself without the projections, without the pain stories. I promise that you are not flawed. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to be fixed. It's rather releasing all those layers of shame and guilt and resistance to reality of everyone telling you, or maybe the voices in your head telling you you're not good enough or it wasn't enough. Those are some major belief systems when we peel back the layers that almost everybody has. And it's either guilt or shame that we start with. So,
Yeah. And I feel like we get kind of like frozen in time, like when our addictions or our eating disorders or our addiction to like behaviors started, it was obviously to like help us cope through the trauma or the pain or the
yes.
unsafeness. And so we kind of like get caught in this loop, or at least I do, of obsessing about what went wrong, or this adolescent is like standing there with their hands in the air saying, why did this happen? Or we get addicted to trying to understand why, or the energy like under the eating disorder,
Mm,
like for me can be, it's is rooted from like anger and mistrust and betrayal
mm,
and all of that. And yeah, like you said it perfectly, like it's almost like when you do heal one part, like maybe addiction, you swap it for something else. So like when I stopped doing drugs and drinking, and I've been sober now for over a year, um I that's when my eating disorder and disordered eating started to like really turn up the volume.
mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was like, oh wow, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I have ever been recovered, it's just that the drug and alcohol abuse and the toxic sex and the drama and the chaos was taking front and center stage, and the eating disorder wasn't as like crazy, although my body image was always shitty during my addictions.
Mm.
It wasn't ever good. um so I think like what you're saying is like it's like layers and phases, and to be more compassionate is, it sounds so simple, but it's just not easy.
Yeah, I agree. And to sort of dovetail off of what you're saying, um, people can get in negative feedback loops, right?
Mm.
And we again want to try to understand this objectively, is that your brain likes to solve puzzles, right? It wants to solve the problem. That's why I think, one of the major reasons why everyone's so stressed with the COVID stuff and everything that's happening in our world right now is like, it just seems there's so much stuff going on. There's not a lot of answers. And so or it puts your brain into hyperdrive because it needs to solve the puzzle, right? It's like if you've ever so an example is right before I took silent retreat, I learned this part of this beautiful mantra chanted by Deva Premal, and I heard a little bit of it, and it was so fucking catchy. And I was going on my silent retreat that next day, and I was like, shit, I have to learn this because otherwise my brain won't shut up about it, and I'm gonna be making up the wrong words. And so I spent about 45 minutes learning this mantra so that my brain could like settle the hell down, right?
Yeah.
um, so if we look at it that way, like you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your thoughts, you're the consciousness below the surface, but you do have to navigate your brain, right? And so if we can recognize that that brain wants to solve that problem, but that the answers are not within the realm of your mind, then we can go in and we can do that deep level healing, which is where you need to be in the realm of feeling, but feeling with compassion, with a guide, right? So I do this thing, and I wrote about it in my book. It's called emotional journeying. And it's where first you come present, right? And then you bring up whatever feeling you have in your body in that moment. So for a lot of people, it could be anxiety or overwhelm or sadness. Yeah. And then we'll breathe and we'll notice the area where we feel it in the body, like the chest or whatever chakra is blocked, the solar plexus, throat. And then we stay there and we just hold compassionate space. You witness it. You don't try to fix it or clench around it or resist, because that's what we usually do, right? We resist a feeling that doesn't feel good. And what does that do? That keeps that negative spin cycle going, because when you're in resistance and tense, you disconnect from your body because it's not a pleasant experience. So, but if we soften and go in there, we become more expansive. I like to say it's like taking concentrated orange juice would be a little nasty for anyone, but if you add some water to it, all of a sudden it's yum yum. So no, digesting shame in your body might not be yum yum, but it's better than having it like, just coiled up in your heart. So
Yeah, like just letting our emotions and everything sit in our body and just like stagnate there and like just settle there. Um that is doing a huge disservice to the body, and what I've realized is like the more I've actually spoken and like outwardly expressed what I'm going through internally with my eating disorder and addiction and depression and anxiety, it's like it frees up space in my body, in my
yes.
physical body. And the for years I was like, oh no, I'm not going to talk about my disordered eating on social media or my podcast or ever in public. I couldn't wrap my head around how people were doing that. I was like, it's such a shameful thing to talk about. And then when I started talking about it, I was like, fuck this, like all these years I was keeping it in, and that was only giving the eating disorder and the addiction all the power.
Yep.
And it was just building up and building up inside of me in shame and regret and disgust, and then those emotions physically manifest in my body as hip pain, as water retention, as solar plexus and sacral chakra being all fucked up and closed off, and then that leads to poor body image days. So it's like this trickle effect that like is all intertwined. And having like a bad body image day can totally just fuck up your whole day, your whole week. And for me, part of eating disorder recovery and radical body acceptance and all that, I feel like it requires like an unbrainwashing, because we're so brainwashed by the eating disorder and by the addiction that it's almost like you can't trust your mind anymore, which kind of sucks, because it's like, okay, like I love myself and I'm making strides, but in recovery a lot of people say, um, do the opposite or go against it, because your perception is false and it's not correct. It's been telling you lies. So how would you help someone reframe that, like the unbrainwashing like process, and like not being able to trust yourself when you have a bad body image day, when you just feel gross in your body and you're like, okay, well, I guess it's all in your head. I can't, but you can't trust yourself and how you feel. So it kind of creates that disconnect with your body.
Mm-hmm. So two things I want to say first. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a lot of these like little catchy things. So it's like fear, false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And also fear, when we're looking out into the world or at ourselves from that perspective, everything is going to be attacking us. So there is a great book, A Course in Miracles, and one of the first lessons that they present is, sort of changing your associations with everything, or sort of, it's not a disassociation, but it's like recognizing that you have projections on everything and it taints everything, right? So if we're in the space of fear, again, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, it's like our body is attacking us in a way. And in the realm of I don't like the way I look, oh my god, like how the hell did I let myself go like this? And, and this could fluctuate. I still have remnants of this, and I have to just what you said as far as you just don't believe the story in the moment, like you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe, and you just have to step away for a while. You have to be a little dualistic about it, create some separation and space, breathe, and notice your emotional state, right? So if you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, like really, take a step back. Don't like take the bait, right? Because your old patterns will always try to bait you. And that's, again, a protective mechanism of your brain. You have these neural pathways built up as far as associations with different things about your body or the world, right? So taking a step back from that and recognizing, okay, that story is not necessarily true. Benefit of the doubt, right? So once you do that, recognize your emotional state, right? Do I feel angry? Do I feel frustrated? Am I in fear? And then once you become aware, and it might take a little bit, right? You might have to breathe and drop into your body. Then again, feeling what you need to feel, like recognizing, okay, I don't feel great right now. So anything I look at or anything I look at or associate with is I'm going to look at the negative parts of it. It's like, I've been giving this example lately. I can take the same script word for word and give it to a person in a happy state and have them read it, and give it to them when they're like pissed off and have them read it. And it will land completely different with their audience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your perspective is always changing. So it's unreliable, right? It's Maya in yoga. It's the illusion. It's that little swoop over the Om symbol. We want to see that Atman. We want to see that truth. So when people are in a tailspin like that, stepping away, breathing, recognizing this isn't necessarily true, creating some space. That's important. And then when you have the space, then you can...
It's JCPenney's Labor Day home sale, and the deals are hot. Get up to 50% off select furniture, mattresses, and window, and refresh every room in the house. Plus, shop doorbusters Friday to Monday while they last, like $6.99 select Fieldcrest bath towels and a Black & Decker food processor or a George Foreman grill for only $39.99 each. Or save an extra 25% with coupon across the store. Hurry and bring it all home for less. JCPenney. Doorbusters valid 9/3 to 9/6 and excluded from coupon. Offers and coupon valid through 9/6. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
Start to say nice things, but you have to go through the muck a little bit, is what I like to say. Because if you if you're looking in the mirror and like you're just like, ew, gross, and then without like acknowledging your feeling, your experience at all, and then you just try to be like, I love myself and I have the perfect body. Like, come on, like that's bullshit, and you know it, and your body knows it too. Your body's like, come on, girl, like.
Yeah.
So that sometimes I listen to podcasters, and they're doing their best, right? Everybody has a different message, but I always kind of like roll my eyes a little bit at the people that just do only like positive affirmations without going into the discomfort, right? Mm-hmm. It's half and half, baby. Like you got to go into the discomfort, but the good news is that you get used to going in it. It's like, shit, when I first started doing push-ups suck. Chaturangas, like, I don't like them, but you keep showing up, you get stronger. They're not so bad. Maybe even in a way, because you're like, oh, I'm stronger. Like, this is nice. And like, you start to like them. You're in the flow of it, right? Purposely putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, like, gives you more resilience. So we can do that every day. And that is part of our yoga practice, whether you're doing a posture or you're just living the life. And so I kind of look at body work, healing our body image that same way. Catch yourself, notice your patterns, label it, feel it, and then from there, then you can start to change your brain pattern. I'm going to add one more thing onto that. Yeah. I used to walk past the mirror and I would look at my body, and this happened so quick because my nervous system was fried from all the drugs and stuff. And just from me beating myself up all the time. So walk by the mirror and instantly be in pain. I didn't even know what I thought. And then as I started doing yoga practice and creating more space between my thoughts, all of a sudden there was this phrase that came up, and it was, "What's wrong with you?" And I got like goosebumps, because it was like a subconscious belief that had bubbled right up in the forefront of my mind. And your brain loves questions, right? Because it likes to solve the puzzle. And so, it's like my brain was like, what's wrong with you? And so my brain was like, oh, you want to know what's wrong with you? Here's a comprehensive list of all the things that's wrong with you. So in an instant, like just a lightning flash, I could pick out 20 things that was wrong with my body, right? Because the associations with my body. So I became aware of that, worked on it. I found out where it came from, and then flipped the question and made it work for me. What's awesome about me? So that was my new question for a while. And again, so I'm hacking my brain, right? And introducing a question, because I know it likes questions, but focusing on the positive, and so much better result, and I built up my answers, and they kept changing and evolving and getting better. And so anyone that has body dysmorphia or just body image troubles, I recommend, going through some of those processes. I have other things that I could talk about it all day, but
Yeah,
but
no, I could literally talk about this stuff all day.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
live the lifestyle. So
I've definitely had some of those moments, especially in like hot yoga, when I was practicing hot yoga, kind of too much, like in my over exercising
mm,
days. I was addicted to the exercise because it was the only thing that got me out of the kind of like the torture of the eating disorder, of the body hatred, and
mm,
from the sweating and from the movement and from connecting to my body, it unlocked something for me to feel so much better in my body, even though I was still the same weight and I was, still looked the same. I felt the energetic opening in my body. And like in those moments, I would find myself crying in yoga, like, oh my God, I can't believe that you put your body through so much abuse,
mm,
with drugs, with alcohol, with purging, which is very
mm.
violent, and
It
with
is.
restricting. And what people don't realize is that um like eating disorders come in all different shapes and sizes,
Mhm,
and even if somebody is struggling with binge restrict and they quote unquote look normal, you know what I mean, like they're not underweight, um they're suffering in silence just as much as the next person, and they might not feel like they can speak their mind because, oh well, I look normal or I look healthy, so I must not have that big of a problem, which is so like a toxic way of thinking towards this disordered eating. And like the dance of good and bad days, I call it energetically bipolar.
That's
um
great. I like that.
Especially for like us yogis, I
Hmm.
feel like we can catch on to our thoughts and feelings, and it just takes us for this like crazy ride. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, I feel so great, there's so much to be grateful for, I'm making huge progress. And the next day I'm like, why am I alive? It's like it's these polar opposites, and it's like the dance between feeling really really good in my body and then simultaneously experiencing these waves of like really poor body image days. And it's like, whoa, what happened there? Like I know that I can't gain 5 or 10 pounds overnight. That's physically impossible to gain 10 pounds of fat overnight. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So it's like, it's those thought loops that people, and for people who don't understand body dysmorphia or eating disorders, if you were to say something like that to them, they could say, "Oh, you're crazy. It's all in your head." And it's like, that's not the most validating thing either, because then it's like, "Oh wow, I am crazy, and it's in my head. I can't even trust my body." And
mm.
it's really, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I was talking to my therapist the other day about this, about how people with eating disorders, the correlation of happiness, like the connection of happiness, is so deeply ingrained and rooted with feeling comfortable and safe in the body, or like content with the body. So like on days where it's like a good body image day, it's like the eating disorder voice comes in and says and gives permission, like you can be happy today. And then when it's not a good body image day, or you feel quote unquote fat or quote unquote disgusting or whatever it is that voice tells you, it's like you can't be happy. It's like it permission ungranted, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's be real. Buying vitamins and supplements can become overwhelming and super stressful. Honestly, I find myself in rabbit holes on the internet trying to find the lowest prices for the best supplements, and it can feel like a full-time job. If you're anything like me and really into healing holistically through vitamins and supplements, then using Care Of is a great way to simplify the entire process. The best part of Care Of is that they specifically curate your daily vitamin packs to be exactly what your body needs to function at its best. All you do is take a quick 5-minute online quiz, and you can even customize your daily supplement packets too. Not only do they have top quality vitamins, but I've really been loving the single packets of probiotics, the Chill Factor, and the Dream Team single packets, which can promote healthy relaxation and sleep, which I need all the help I can get in that department because I have insomnia. And since I have a lot going on health-wise, I'm trying to balance out my hormones, my autoimmune symptoms, and regulate my digestion. It's been really nice to not have to worry about buying all these bottles of supplements. Care Of makes it easy and effortless. Supplement shopping can become so expensive too, but with Care Of, you're really getting exactly what you need for a fraction of the price. So for 50% off of your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com and enter code VIBEWITHIN50. Take out all the pressure and the stress when it comes to getting your vitamins and your supplements, and go to takecareof.com and enter the code VIBEWITHIN50 for 50% off your first order.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people, when I coach people, they appreciate that I've had different perspectives of, having been addicted to drugs and alcohol, and then also having an eating disorder. And I find that, again, it's the root cause is there's unaddressed pain on the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we just have our different associations, whatever we, have chosen from, parents modeling things or culture, or, we want to have a certain control over our bodies. So I think that getting out of the mind as much as we can is so helpful. I've practiced yoga for I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years. But I feel like I really, the first 3 years, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was more of an exercise. And what you mentioned about, you go to hot yoga, and even though like you didn't lose any weight, obviously your body hadn't changed that much, but like all of a sudden you just felt like so much better. There is something to be said about moving the energy within us, right? Because again, so I've studied like Chinese medicine a lot. Pain in its essence is stagnant energy. And so the brain, again, has a tendency, we get so caught in these loops. We try to find the answer in our mind. If I just do this and do that and balance all that. And I'm going to tie in a little bit of your last podcast as far as it was like self-help overload or something, like, or self-development overload. You hear all these voices, oh, do this, ketogenic diet, that, or like, fasting this, and, take this supplement. It becomes so overwhelming, and you could really hurt yourself doing too much and too many. And a lot of times people just get overwhelmed, and then they're even more disconnected from themselves. So that's why I'm such an advocate of, like connecting to yourself. And I know, like, I might sound like a broken record here, but it's, how can you listen to your inner wisdom when you have all these other voices that think they know what's best for you, going through your brain? We do have to trust. And again, that safety, that trust is so important. And that is a relationship with yourself. It's a relationship, and relationships you have to work at every day. Sometimes you wake up and like your partner says something to you that sounds a little pissy, and you're like, and then it sets you off, and then you guys are like going at it, and then other mornings you roll over and you like give a kiss on the cheek and it's like easy breezy. It's like some days we wake up that way, right? Like we wake up and all of a sudden there's whatever thought for whatever reason we chose that was just like, oh, you can't fit into your pants today, or whatever, and that would just like set somebody off that had body image issues or an eating disorder, and then it just continues from there. So having practices in place that drop us into our body, like yoga, or even if you're not doing like the asana practice, like running, like just like getting out in nature, like directing your mind is a new thing that I've been doing. Actually, it's something more my partner does. He's more of a jnana yogi, so he's like very intellectual. Getting out of that loop as soon as you can. Don't fight it. It's like trying to like punch the ocean in the face. Like you're not gonna win. The ocean's gonna win. At least for a little while, you need to create that space, and then you keep choosing different belief systems, right? And then the old neural pathways start to like dissolve in your brain, and you've created a new pathway. But I liken it to, if there's a kid and I don't know, they're playing with a toy and they're like banging it off of shit, and you're like, hey, don't do that. Give me that toy. Like the kid's going to cry because you took away their toy. But if you were like, hey, Tommy, his name's Tommy, hey, give me that. Well, I'm going to give you this teddy bear instead. Like it's an easier transition, isn't it? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So doing that with ourselves, it takes so much care and so much getting to know ourselves. So many people are afraid of, especially those in recovery, intimacy. I mean, when I'm with my clients, whether it be through like Skype or in person, I'm very intimate with them. And that means I listen to them. I'm present with them. I'm curious and I'm invested. And I just, like, I love them. I love them. And so many people don't go there with themselves. Like if you don't know those pieces of yourself, you're going to be craving other people to see and acknowledge those things about you when you're not even revealing them because you don't know them, you're not embracing them. And what a tragedy, because when you get to know yourself, there's so many hidden gifts and talents and potential that is unlocked within us. Like you're so, bright and vulnerable at such a young age. Like I'm like just meeting you, but I'm just like so proud of you. Like, go girl, because I know personally that freedom comes from opening up and being vulnerable at the very basic level, right? And you're so good at that, being vulnerable and being open and being authentic. And that's what I really loved when you reached out to me. I was like, I hope she's cool. And then I listened to like part of a podcast. I was like, oh snap, she's cool. I can relate to this girl. Let's chat. So
That's awesome. Like energy, like, I didn't know you at all, but after I heard that episode with you, I was like, oh, I fuck with her energy. And it's like what you're saying with the intimacy, it's really hard to be intimate with someone, whether it's dating or friendship, when you feel so shitty or unsafe in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you constantly have symptoms and like physical or emotional, it's really hard to like, okay, I'm going to put on this mask. I'm going to like, go out and hang out with somebody and like pretend that I'm normal and pretend that I'm happy. It's like, it does require a lot of accepting, yourself. And I've been celibate for some time now, and I've been single for like probably 4 years, and I have no desire to really get in a relationship or have sex because of how much damage I did to my body and my soul with all of the toxic sex that I did have with people, especially when you're on drugs and your whole sense of judgment is just so skewed. And I feel like the last couple years I've been regaining trust with my body, like, hey, I understand I put you through a lot, but things are getting better now, and you can start to like yourself more. You can, even if you have a bad body image day, you're allowed to be happy. There's other things that you can be happy about.
Mm.
And what I've realized a lot recently is that, and this goes for addiction too, you can't expect to heal in the same place or environment that triggered you to get sick in the first place.
Mm.
And I really had to like swallow that really big pill and say, all right, nothing's changing. I feel like I'm stuck in a loop. And I knew that I needed to create a safe container in order to heal. And, you know, a lot of people say create a safe container, and I hear this word all the time, and I really had to think and break it down, like, well, what does that mean? And for me, it meant leaving the toxic family dynamic that was continuing to trigger me and to unvalidate my emotions and my feelings. And people with addictions and eating disorders they're still smart people. They're very smart because they're using their pain and suffering, and they're shifting it somewhere else so that they don't have to be a nuisance on others,
Mm. That's a great way of
And
looking at it. I've never quite heard it put that way. I appreciate that.
yeah, at least that's how I feel. Like my eating disorder, when it formed when I was in high school, it's almost like I was being blamed for being the person that was causing all the pain in the family because of my eating disorder. But what they didn't realize is that the reason why my eating disorder evolved was because I was trying to deal with the trauma and the pain that was going on around me
Mm.
in their dynamic and their patterns and cycles. And it's like I had an epiphany when I was living in Florida with my mom and my stepdad again. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like deja vu. This is why I got sick in high school. This is why this all happened. And it comes to a point where I can't expect people around me to change, and I have to remove myself from the toxic environment in order to prove to my body that it is safe and that it is okay,
Mm.
and that we are on a non-linear path, but hopefully a path of upward healing. And I just couldn't get anywhere higher uh, staying in that environment. And it's really hard because it can be very lonely. It can be very isolating if you're
Yes.
you're really in this shadow work and you're trying to heal trauma. And people have so many things they're healing. Most people who have an addiction have other things that they're healing. Like you said, it comes from
Hmm.
pain. So it's not just the addiction to the substance or the behavior, but they're also trying to heal that trauma wound. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and the path of healing is sometimes, yes, it can be a lonely one, especially, it's like you have your circle of friends, and then you're using and making bad choices, and then you wake up one day, you're like, yeah, this isn't working for me. You can't just, like you said, keep going and hanging out with those people, because you're going to fall back into those habits again. Um,
Hmm.
so removing yourself from that situation is of the utmost importance. Creating space. Um, for me, I've evolved my yoga practice to be a little bit more in tantric philosophy, but in the beginning, I started with a very classical form of yoga, Ashtanga, because I was drawn to it for the duality. I had not enough space between my thoughts and my brain, and like body and self, etc. And I needed to create that separation. And even my meditations were more duality. It was like I was trying to escape myself because I was too hyper identified with something I wasn't. And because I was hyper identified with this thing I wasn't, I know this might sound weird, but I could never live up to it. And so I needed to separate from that first, and then love it from a distance. It's like imagine like a Monet painting and you're like, your nose is smushed up against it and you're looking at it, you're like, ew, this is ugly. But then like you take a couple of steps back, and then you start to see the picture. You're like, oh, actually, that's like the lady in the park with the parasol, or I'm trying to think of the famous one that he did. And you actually see it for what it is. And then you can start to like embrace it. So you removing yourself from a toxic situation, even though it was difficult for you, is, I mean, bravo. Like, it's necessary. I agree. It's 100% necessary. And then once we heal, I think, we have different phases as far as what we focus on, but a sangha, a spiritual community, having that at some point during our recovery, like connecting with people on that level, letting your soul be heard. And I think I do this, and perhaps you do this too. When we record our podcasts, it's cathartic for us because we get to talk about this stuff, go into that spiritual realm. And if we're lucky, maybe some people will like send us an email. I'm always like, oh my God, yippee. When I get an email from a listener, I'm like, yes. And they'll tell me like my podcast helped them. And I'm like, yay, I feel connected. I want to hear from you. Or, you get a review on iTunes or whatever. And what joy to connect with another podcaster, right? So having that spiritual community.
It's like therapeutic.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's our very, very public diary.
It's like, it's almost like, I don't consider myself an expert. I'm super into psychology, and I've been teaching yoga for a while. So I feel like I was living in the imposter syndrome space for a while. And then I finally allowed myself to start talking about depression and anxiety and all the trauma that I've been through as a adolescent. And what I realized is that why would I keep it in if I could help at least one person, and by expressing it outwardly, it's helping people in a way that, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm sharing my experience. And like you said, just by sharing our experience, our actual lived experience with this shit is so validating, because it's like when I heard the podcast episode with you, and when I fell in love with your work, it's like, oh my God, I feel so heard, I feel so understood. And it's not like we're sitting here and preaching to people. We're just trying to like dig into the psyche and be like, all right, well, what worked? And during these dark moments, like, how do we get out of it? And like just trying to like make sense of it all, because people can get so lost and lonely, and especially like in the family dynamic of like, okay, if you have to remove yourself from your family, or I moved cross country, I'm here alone, with my cat, my roommate. I have a couple cousins here, that's it. And part of me is like shameful and guilty that I left, and that I spoke my truth, and I shook things up, and I caused some drama. But I think that in our recovery, it's just going to be messy at times. And sometimes when we're trying to up level and heal, we can come off as being really intense, or like too much, or like overthinking, or just like so like in it, and I find myself dancing between those, okay, I need to enjoy my life more, and also like deep in this healing work, because I'm finally ready. Because in high school, when I was kind of interventioned and forced into treatment, I wasn't ready. My family was pointing the finger at me and saying, you need to recover. And I'm glad they did. I survived. I was not well. I was very sick and physically ill. So I understand why I was forced into treatment, but the treatment was traumatic. It honestly caused more PTSD, and they didn't show me the tools to embrace my body changing. They also didn't look at the reason why I had an eating disorder. They didn't ask, okay, well, why is this girl, starving herself and doing these things? What's going on at home?
Mm.
It was more like, and this was a while ago, but things have changed since then in the eating disorder recovery space. But it was almost like, the person with the ED was the problem, and nobody was willing to look at what was really happening, like the pain and the trauma, like what you're saying. So it can be this paradox of, now I'm sitting here in this safe space that I've created, 15 years later, and I'm totally ready to recover, and I'm in the recovery space full force because nobody's forcing me to, nobody's telling me to, and because I'm finally not around the toxicity. You know what I mean? So I feel like we really have to sit back and ask ourselves, well, what's making us feel like we need to use or have an eating disorder?
Yeah, and until you have that space to where you're not using and you're not engaging in those behaviors, the feelings can come up to where you can get answers. You can know, okay, this is actually me coping with anxiety, or this is me. I don't know. I'm lonely and I miss people, and food is my companion. So
Yeah.
when you're quiet and you take a step back from that engaging behavior and don't react, then the answers come. Just liken it to my partner and I have been working through some communication stuff. We've been going through, like, he says things in a certain way that would, in a tone that would like trigger me, and then our defenses would go up, and then we're both alphas, and we're both like into martial arts, black belts, so we're just like so um we had to find a way to each, again, feel safe, right? I had to ask him to change his tone. Defenses went down, and all of a sudden we hear each other now. We're communicating
Mhm.
so much better. And that's a process. It's a give and take, and like you said, it's a dance. Um, so it's going to
Yeah.
happen bit by bit, step by step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the safety piece is like, and like the energy that I just felt when you were saying, when you have a disagreement, it's like the body gets in fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And when the body is in fight or flight, my body was in fight or flight for 15 years. And it fucked up my hormones. I lost my period. I had acne. I have Hashimoto. I have autoimmune stuff.
Mm.
So I feel like the eating disorder and the drug use definitely triggered that. And now, for the first time in my life, I'm not in fight or flight. And it's like, oh, I have to keep reminding myself, you're safe.
Mm.
I have to keep reminding myself that, because
Mm.
sometimes I'll like wake up and I'll be like in a crazy, like irritable, angry mood. And I'm like, wait, why am I angry again? Like, what triggered that? And maybe it was a text message or something I read or something but that's over, and actually everything in this moment right now is actually safe. And I'm like looking around and I'm like, oh, my cat's chilling, I'm on my porch, I'm good. But like my body is just so used to being in that fight or flight. So it's really interesting, like, the whole mindfulness and yoga and just being present and like anchoring back into this moment and being like, okay, yeah, I know my body is so used to being in this sporadic mind state with the drugs, the alcohol, the eating disorder, but journaling and reminding myself that I'm actually safe and everything's okay is a practice that helps.
Good on you. That's you recognizing the pattern and then creating a new one. So that's fantastic work.
Um, Thank you. But like I said, it took me removing myself from that toxic, you know, pattern and the surroundings. And has that happened to you, like in your eating disorder and addiction? What was like a kind of like a rock bottomy moment that you realized, or a very isolating moment, or something like that? Because we talk about rock bottoms a lot on this podcast. If anything, specific, like a specific memory comes up.
Yeah, so I was in college and I was binging and purging about 4 or 5 times a day. I started skipping classes. I'd been skipping classes that whole semester, actually. Um, I remember I just kept throwing up, throwing up, throwing up, and I was like chronically dehydrated. And um, I remember I ate like a bunch of chocolate, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then I'm trying to throw it up because I would even binge on like low calorie food. So even if I didn't get it all up,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about hydration and taking care of my body or anything, which is funny because I was an athlete. But anyways, I threw up so hard that like all the blood vessels in my eyes burst and I look like a demon.
Wow.
And
Wow.
my left eye still has one that never healed, but luckily you can't really see it unless I turn my, like if I do a side eye to someone they could see it. But um,
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking in the mirror after that, and I just like saw the blood starting to spread around the whites of my eyes, and I had like some vomit on my sweater, and I was just like, my hair was all messed up, and my skin, as you know, like your skin gets fucked up, and I
Yeah.
didn't have acne, but it was just blotchy everywhere, and I had like this redness, and I just, I don't know, it's like I couldn't hate myself anymore. I had gained, I don't know, 20 or 25 pounds just from my metabolism was so fucked up, and I was just exhausted all the time, and I was sick, and I had ulcers. And there was, for me, there was no lower. I had been, again, trying to control my appetite with Adderall and other things too. And it was that moment where I couldn't hate myself any harder, and my body just ached, and I had a moment of like sympathy. There's just like, I recognized that I was in this terrible cycle, and it's almost like my body was just like, please, please,
Yeah.
please, can we stop? Like,
Yeah.
and that's when that was one of the moments where I just like my binging started to lessen a bit, and the purging started to lessen,
Mm.
and I started to move my body at least a little bit, like at least show it some kind of love, maybe drink a glass of water or two, and then I started, my journey was a very long one. It took me a long time. But that moment was probably a rock bottom right there. Yeah.
And that was the catalyst to start making those tiny little minuscule changes
Hmm.
that all add up,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Yep.
That thank you so much for sharing that. That is so, I mean, that's like that people don't talk about those really dark, vulnerable moments of eating disorders.
Mm.
And I personally not enjoy, but I find I got the chills when you were saying that because it's just so real. And like if we don't talk about these moments and let people know that like, hey, I've been through a dark ass moment like that too, and that could be the catalyst of your healing, if you let
Totally.
it.
Yep. Yep. In the hour of, I think it's like a Batman movie. Is like it's like darkest before it gets light. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I feel like I could talk to you for another like 3 hours because you're just so like validating and comforting. And if I ever, I will probably make it back to Florida eventually, but we'll have to link up because your body work and your therapy just sounds so, so healing. I'm actually trying to find a somatic healer to work on my hip out here. So um, if anybody is in the Florida area and they can come see you, where can they find you? I know times are weird right now with COVID, but are you offering coaching online and anything like that?
Yeah, so with coaching, it's pretty easy to do online or in person because we can maintain 6 feet,
Hmm.
et cetera. So, and I have, location, my 2 yoga studios in Bradenton, Thrive Yoga and Fitness. But people can check out, let's see, I guess my podcast, Thrive Yoga Fit, Transformational Coaching. Reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com, if they want to email me. And if they are local, thriveyogafit.com, they can see classes if they want to come take a yoga class, or if they want to, schedule an appointment for body worker coaching. And sometimes I can bind them depending on what's going on. They can reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah.
I love that. And I want to say, I did one of your meditations the other day, and it was like a breathing technique where you breathe into the chest and the belly, and then you kind of do like a Kegel, like you were saying, and you did this one on the podcast that I listened to as well, like kind of like you're holding in your pee, or like
yeah,
Kegel.
like a mula bandha, the lifting.
Yeah, and so I did that, and so many emotions came up because of my blockage in my sacral chakra, and like has to do with sexual assault and stuff like that. And I just want to let the listeners know that on your podcast, you have so many amazing meditations just like there, just for everyone, and it's just like I just find it really amazing that you put those out there for people, and it's a free resource, and your energy is so felt in them. Like you always just like say things in a way that's not all like cookie cutter meditation bullshit. It's like they're very detailed, and like each meditation is like very specific, which I really love. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have to do this again. Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It really helped me find new ways of feeling my way out of things, and stability, and there's going to be ups and downs of recovery, whatever you're recovering from, people, pills, addiction, and any sort, eating disorders, codependency, whatever it is. So hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, that's really going to help me find this new way of connecting with you guys. All right, I'm going to leave you with the rest of this song, This City by Matt Bellina, co-written by me.
One spark of divinity within me. Alright. This city. One spark of divinity within me. Alright. But now there's only ashes and gloom as I melt alone in this hotel room. No appetite, but a starving mental fight. No appetite, but I got a starving mental fight. It's crazy, I found myself and lost myself all in one whole night. Then you can truly move on. Yeah, I feel so free to be wrong. 'Cause then you can truly move on. Without the attachment or expectation of a certain outcome.
It's JCPenney's Labor Day home sale, and the deals are hot. Get up to 50% off select furniture, mattresses, and window, and refresh every room in the house. Plus, shop doorbusters Friday to Monday while they last, like $6.99 select Fieldcrest bath towels and a Black & Decker food processor or a George Foreman grill for only $39.99 each. Or save an extra 25% with coupon across the store. Hurry and bring it all home for less. JCPenney. Doorbusters valid 9/3 to 9/6 and excluded from coupon. Offers and coupon valid through 9/6. Some exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.